Hey, Composite Gloves here, and today I'm going to be talking about what the Safe Overloads button does in the audio section of FL Studios, because someone asked me this question. They were like, what the heck is this? Because I have these underrun things. So the Safe Overloads button is a result of the buffer that FL uses to process your audio. So a buffer is just an area of memory that is used to store data to be read out at a later time. So we have this buffer of memory, this area of memory. I think of it as sort of a room, and there's two doors on this room. And in one door, you put information in the room. And that's what your CPU does. Your CPU puts info in this room, and then you have this buffer. And then at the other end, you have this thing that reads the information. So it takes info out of the room. And in audio, we want to take info out of this room at a very specific rate. So we're going to be reading information out of this room so we can actually put in information a lot faster than we need to pull it out. And so we have this ability. So that's called, so we write in data and then we'll read out data. And what happens though is what happens if your guy who's putting info in the room cannot keep up with the guy who's pulling it out? What happens when the guy comes back and the room is empty? And you go, oh, jank, what do I do? Well, what ends up happening is he freaks out and you get clicks and pops in your audio and it sounds like trash. So there's a couple ways to help avoid this. One is you could triple the buffer size or increase your latency. So if you increase your latency, you give the guy a bigger room to work with. And so he has more time to put stuff in. And so you're at less risk of the guy pulling stuff out to have a problem with it. Because in audio, we come back at a very specific rate. This guy is relentless. He comes back at the same exact time every single time, at the same rate. So that's what triple buffer does. Now, the problem is it increases your latency. So when you hit a key, it takes a little longer for things to happen. When you're mixing and stuff, no big deal. The latency isn't that big a deal. But when you're tracking live, the latency is a big deal. And the latency we care about is the final latency, not the latency on your audio interface. Your audio interface will definitely help the latency. But if you look over here on status, we have latency input and all this other mumbo jumbo. But at the end of the day, we have a 28 millisecond deal going on over here. So just because this says 8 milliseconds does not mean that that's what you're going to hear when it comes out of your speakers. And so we care about this one. You want to get it below 80. That's the goal. Below 80 will sound great. Because like 8 milliseconds is ridiculously fast. So that has to do with your interface. And that's where the mix and buffer switch, that could be something that your interface could take advantage of, maybe. So the safe overloads is a way of dealing with what happens when you do have an underrun, meaning the guy comes back and freaks out because the room is empty. So the safe overloads, what's that all about? So the safe overloads deals with, and if we look up here, it controls like no risk of GUI freezing when overloads occur. It's like, oh my goodness, what is that? So when it's off, FL Studio will give priority when an underrun is going to occur. It's going to give priority for the CPU to handle the audio stream. And so FL could lock up and it could freeze. And so we have the ability to change the priority level of this. And then we also have a safe overloads, which means when it's on, that it's going to give priority to the GUI, meaning it'll still deal with the audio problem going on at the time, but maybe you're not live. If you're recording, you don't want this on because that's a higher risk of having pops and stuff. If you're not recording and you're mixing or something, this might be okay to have on. It's circumstantial. It depends on what you're doing. Do you care if there's the occasional click or pop? But safe overloads basically means that when you're moving the knob, there will be CPU left over to move that knob. And you can control like how sensitive FL is to these things. So that's what these do. Not all that these do, but pretty much. That's what these do. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you have anything to add, go ahead, put it down. Maybe a circumstance or a perspective I missed. Maybe I got something wrong. I don't know. But that's like buffer. It's a very fundamental concept to like understand so that when you're moving things, because it's not a race to see who can get the lowest buffer. It's not a race to see, like I put mine on 21 because that's the highest my interface goes. And that will change it'll make it so that when I'm mixing a complicated project, I don't have clicks and pops and stuff because I want my audio quality to be higher. So I'll max out everything, make it as slow as possible so I have no clicks or pops. Subscribe and have a blessed day.